let me take you out into the weeds and I promise it'll only be for 1 minute. What quarterback that plays in the league would you want on the Broncos to replace Peyton Manning?
Well, there is another guy named Manning out there who's at the end of his New York Giants contract. And if the Giants either don't want him back or he doesn't want to go back to the Giants and the Broncos are looking for a quarterback, would you want to? I'm just asking.
No,
would you want to plug in Eli Manning, who's won 2 Super Bowls?
That is an amazing point you made. And I'm not being facetious. That's an amazing point. I could sit here all day and I wouldn't have thought of Eli Manning. Do you really think they would do that?
I don't know.
I mean, you say you're raising it, but let's go down that path for a moment.
Think of it in these terms. If Peyton leaves, if Peyton's done, and Osweiler chooses to leave after this year because he can, or the Broncos decide Osweiler's not their guy. I don't know. But there are teams out there.
Really?
There are teams out there
based on what?
That need quarterbacks desperately and might be willing to take
Brock,
the chance.
But somebody tell me.
And he won't be that expensive, okay? Because he hasn't played. So if the Broncos...
He's not going to leave here if he's not...
You asked me for the scenario. I'm giving you the scenario.
Okay, but he's not going to leave if he's not expensive.
If Osweiler doesn't want to stay here, or if the Broncos decide after watching him in training camp and exhibition games and during the regular season that he's not their quarterback of the future, the Broncos are left with Zach Dysert, who they like.
No, they wouldn't be left with Zach Dysert. They'd go out and get some better quarterback.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. And you say you raise the... And I don't care what other issues we have to talk about. I want to talk about this.
Okay.
This is something I haven't heard anybody talk about. And you just brought up, would it be possible that the Broncos, looking back 10 years from now, would say, we have a quarterback who's won 2 Super Bowls?
That would be 2 of them. That would be the second one.
Yeah.
John Elway being the first.
Eli Manning. Yeah. Do you think people would want to... I mean... I looked again at the team.
Why do you seem so exasperated by
I'm not exasperated. I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's why I said I don't want anybody to hold up these signs or go to commercials or anything. I want to talk about this because I think it's one of the most fascinating things. Jimmy, are you on this? It's one of the most fascinating things we've ever talked about. Would it be nobody's raised this point. Nobody. You are brilliant. You have brought up something nobody... Have you ever heard? I mean, did someone whisper that in your ear? You thought of this all by yourself?
I do a lot of reading, and I know Eli's contract is coming up.
Soon?
I believe he's in the final... Look it up. I believe he's in the final year of his contract with the New York Giants.
Would that be something to have Eli Manning...
Yes, it would. That would be something.
...succeed his brother in Denver? That is just... I'm almost speechless, and you know how difficult that is. I wouldn't have thought of Eli Manning, but
my point is that if
he
the Broncos,
could move into Peyton's house.
He's a free agent next year. I was just
would
told.
you pay him the $20 million like you paid Peyton?
Well, I think you'd have to pay him as one of the elite quarterbacks in the league.
Well, he thinks he is. Do you know who is second in career earnings to Peyton Manning in the National Football League?
Is it Eli? Wow, I didn't know that.
That's what we do to each other. We tell each other. We educate each other. Peyton is going to approach $250 million in his NFL salary this year. He'll come up
even
if he
with
gets the bonus.
Even with the pay cut?
If he gets the bonus, he'll be right on the break, the cusp of $250 million. Think of that, $250 million to play football. I wondered whether that was in the top 4 sports, because Floyd Mayweather is going to make more money than anybody playing sports.
And I think Shaquille O'Neal made around $300 million playing basketball. And you know who else? Kevin Garnett. Well, I think he's well over $300 million.
Okay, because Shaquille O'Neal is not worth a dime on television. He is the
Don't like those commercials.
No, the commercials are fine.
On the pre- and post-game show, yeah.
Oh, he's terrible.
Yeah.
He garbles and stuff and doesn't say anything. Okay, so we go back to, let's start that.
You want to start the campaign? Bring in Eli next year?
Bring in Eli.
Look, we know one thing.
He'd have a place to stay.
Yeah, we know one thing. John Elway perfectly understands.
He likes to play golf.
Understands more than most.
He has that quarterback camp at Duke.
John Elway understands more than most how important the quarterback position is in the National Football League. And if you don't have one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, chances are you are not going to win a Super Bowl. So,
do you think John Elway would want to deal with another Manning?
he's a different type Manning. He's not as difficult as Peyton is. We know that. So, yeah, I mean, if I have no doubt that this is something that John Elway has thought about.
You think so?
That if they deem Brock Osweiler not ready or never going to be the guy who takes us to the promised land, he has to think about, if he wants to stay competitive over the next few years, he has to think about going out and getting a veteran free agent quarterback.
How about, let me give you one.
Okay.
You've given me one that's going to give me a lot of pause for
blew your
thought and
mind.
maybe stories and columns and all sorts of stuff, because I think that's brilliant. But mine,
Might be more brilliant?
no, mine might be in the same paragraph with yours.
Okay.
Phillip Rivers.
Sure. I don't know how willing he is to leave San Diego. He's on record as saying if the Chargers move to L.A., he might retire. He doesn't want to leave San Diego. Now, people change their minds, and money certainly helps change people's minds as well. So I would guess if they have a Super Bowl-ready team here, and the only missing ingredient is one of those better quarterbacks, and they make it worth his while, they stuff his pocketbook well, the right way,
Because he's in the last year of his contract.
He is.
Let me give you another one. Because I think this is fascinating.
I think we have a column for Sunday.
No, I just think this. I think we have the rest of the show because I don't think we've discussed anything that's more interesting than this. How about Drew Brees?
When's he up? Any idea? Find out when his contract's up.
Yeah, put this to work. Drew Brees, all right. And the reason why I say Drew Brees, let me give you an aside. As Jim Nantz would say at the Masters, a tradition like no other. We need to get Jim on before the Masters.
I have his number. We can call him.
I do too.
Yeah.
Let's get him on. He would love to come on. He calls it a sidebar. Vin Scully always says, they use newspaper terms.
I was just told Drew Brees is not a free agent until 2017. So 2 more years in New Orleans.
Okay, except that there was rumors in the last 3 or 4 weeks that the Saints might consider trading him in order to get Mariota. Let's say Drew Brees is available. Would you think John Elway would be interested in an old Drew Brees?
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Because he's interested in an old Peyton Manning. Why wouldn't he be interested in an old Drew Brees?
Well, I'm going to tell you something you didn't know as I try to educate you. So when John sat down with his father to learn how to be a player evaluator, they looked at film of a quarterback who was in the Big Ten, and Elway said, he can't play in the pros. His father said, son, you got to look inside his heart. And inside his heart, there looms an NFL star. And you know who that was?
I'm going to guess Drew Brees.
And John said he learned from his father to look beyond the stats. I mean, think about Drew Brees. He was the best under 6 foot. He's not 6 feet. He's 5'11" and a half.
Yeah.
Who's come along and almost won 2 Super Bowls? A quarterback that's below 6 feet.
Russell Wilson.
So you have to look
Sure.
inside a player's mind and his heart and his soul. And I told you last year they didn't have soul on this team. Do they have soul on this team now?
They do. We call these intangibles, and Drew Brees certainly has them.
So that's why I said, would he be interested in Drew Brees? Think of a younger quarterback. Let's think in terms of, because he probably, I don't believe he'll go for another older quarterback. Who would be a younger
quarterback? Well, it depends.
quarterback?
If he sees them as a bridge to a younger guy that he can draft and develop.
That's what Peyton Manning. Oh, wow. Here we go with draft and develop again. Brock Osweiler was drafted to be developed. That's why Elway's not going to let him get away. You say, if he went somewhere else, who really wants him? Nobody's seen him. The only person that really wants him in the league. The only person. There's not a scout, a general manager, anywhere else that wants Brock Osweiler on his team.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on elwaydealers.com.